Get ready for some laughs and some good times on Comedy Simp, where we let loose and unwind. Hosted by Steve and Michael James, he's the man. Bringing you jokes and fun, it's all part of the plan. Join us for a ride, let's take it to the max. Comedy Simp, where the laughter never ends. Steve and Michael James, he's your new best friend. Get ready to smile, get ready to cheer, because Comedy Simp is finally here.
Test. All right.
Okay. So that's just the only monitoring that you're doing.
I literally just dropped one of my headphones in a cup of water.
Oh, just now?
Yes,
that's
just
fun.
now. But it's no big deal. It's just Sony. You know,
Yeah, no big deal.
they could afford a rebate. You know, that was a malfunctioning piece of hardware.
Yeah, it wasn't working in the first place. So, yeah.
Jason,
What's up, Steven?
man, you here?
I made it.
Returning guest.
Yeah, I was not really planned to be a guest the first time. I just
Yeah.
showed up. So that was fun.
So tell the people, how has your life changed since the last time you were on the podcast?
Oh, man, it is just a few weeks later.
Yeah.
So I'm older now.
Things have happened. You know, things have happened. It's been pretty crazy.
The world has.
The world, you know, I don't know if it had any result of you being on the podcast, but the world there's been a lot of crazy things happening, you know?
Yeah, it's nuts. Taja Pajagar won the tour.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing
Yeah.
that I've got going. So
How what do you do to kind of tune out of all the craziness that's going on, you know, on the news, the internet,
oh man, it is hard to turn it off.
yeah.
And so, yeah, I love Wordle. Like, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I play Wordle.
It's been a while since I played Wordle.
I do the crossword, and that soothes me. But I cheat at the crossword because there's an auto check feature in the app,
Uh-huh.
and I always use it. So, like, if I put the wrong letter in, it will say that's not it.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. But I try to get the words, but I'm not that smart. So
I do like a good crossword puzzle, you know. I believe was it the New York Times? Somebody had a famous crossword puzzle that was notoriously very difficult to do, and a lot of people would do it.
the Sunday New York Times.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
See, I love. You're a little older than me, so I love that. Like, we can actually talk about history because anybody. I'm sorry to my listeners out there, but anybody under the age of 30, they have no idea what's going on before the year 2000. You know.
Yeah. The world has changed so much. You're 38?
Yeah.
Yeah.
38.
I'm 43.
Perfect.
So we grew up through the whole 90s.
Yeah, I almost feel like you had like kind of the best of both worlds, kind of that Gen X and that millennial.
Yeah.
My brother was born in 76, so
Okay.
he's a little older than you. You're in between me and him.
Right.
So like you're like in the sweet spot there. You had Nirvana, you had Pearl Jam,
Yeah.
you had Smash Mouth in the late 90s, Tech Boom.
I grew up in church.
Uh-huh.
I didn't have any of that. Like, I didn't listen. I didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
when Kurt Cobain died, I remember I was in junior high,
Uh-huh.
and my friend Ryan, who we call Squeege, came in to home ec,
Yeah.
super sad. And he's like, Kurt Cobain is dead. And I said, who's that? And that was the moment that I was like, I know nothing about the world. And yeah, my friend Kevin then went and bought all of the Nirvana CDs
Uh-huh.
and gave me his tapes. And so that's how I actually got to know Nirvana and Smashing Pumpkins is hand-me-down music.
So did you like that music when you first heard it?
Yeah.
Was it different than what you were
Yeah.
accustomed to? Was it kind of more church music that you're growing
Yeah,
up
I was
with?
growing up listening to DC Talk
Uh-huh.
and Audio Adrenaline and that kind of stuff. And so, like, that was all just like a copy of what was in the world.
The mainstream.
Yeah.
You know.
And so, like, as soon as I heard Nirvana, I was like, oh, I know this.
Mhm.
Like, I know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so I loved it. But Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream,
Oh,
that album.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. You know, a lot of people say Melancholy is their bet, but I really that's a double album.
It's
you
too
know,
long.
As a musician, you know, you can kind of look at it with a fair eye and say, you know, there's some filler there, a little bit of filler, a little bit of stuff too long, but to get an album start to finish is incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah.
And that's one of them. I mean, that one is I think it's either their highest selling or their second highest selling album.
Yeah,
then.
it is the best
Yeah.
album. Like, I think it is probably my favorite album. If I hear one song, if I hear one song just in shuffle, I have to go back and listen to the whole thing.
What's your favorite song on the album?
I love Cherub Rock.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the intro. It's so good.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise is good. I like
yeah.
Mayonnaise.
Oh, Mayonnaise is great.
Yeah. And Today is also just a really great song.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, it's just, I don't know what they were doing at that time, but they made like a magical album.
Yeah.
It's so good. So
I used to be in a band when I was a kid and play guitar. You asked me earlier, did I play bass? So the story is, I got a guitar in the late 90s. I wanted to learn how to play. My mom got me an acoustic guitar. It was actually a classical, so I don't know how familiar you are.
Yeah, I play guitar.
Yeah. So classicals, to the people who don't know, they have nylon strings. You're not supposed to use a pick. It's a finger-picked instrument.
Yeah. And the neck is super wide.
Yeah. And I didn't know that, so I messed around, played with the pick, scratched it up, that kind of stuff. Just, I played around with I even put steel strings on it, messed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Just experimented as a kid. Never took to it. And then I got my first electric guitar. Somehow I talked my mom into getting it. It was about $100. And then from there, I had the internet, started learning how to play. It took me a long time to figure out how to tune the guitar properly.
Yeah.
I tried to join a band before I was musically proficient enough to join a band, and you know they kind of made fun of me if I couldn't tune the guitar. And they were friends; they weren't just a band; they were like my buddies that I wanted to be part of the thing. So I took like a summer and learned a little bit of guitar, and then somehow I got a bass after that too. Yeah. And the bass, you know what it was actually? I think I started playing bass with those guys because they had a bass. They had like a one of those old kind of homemade hand-me-down basses that like a uncle made or something.
Right.
And I played that for a while, but it was like, hey, dude, you should get a real bass. And so I played bass in the band for a while, and that's how I really started to get good at all the instruments. It was it just started off easy. You're just learning rhythm, and you're learning single notes. You're not really doing chords. They can be very intimidating to people who've never played guitar before.
Yeah, guitar's tough.
Yeah,
because like a piano, there's one middle C, but guitar has 3 in different places.
Yeah,
and so like trying to like get your brain around it, like, oh, there's a lot of options here, is kind of difficult. I too was in a band.
Yeah,
I was in a Christian rock band.
Nice. How old were you?
I was 15 when I joined the band.
Okay, nice.
I was 10 years younger than everybody else in the band.
Okay.
and so like I didn't drive. They always picked me up for everything, but they needed an electric guitar player for a battle of the bands.
Nice.
And I barely knew how to play. And so they were like, hey, you can come and learn this song.
Yeah.
And so I learned the song, did the battle of the bands, and then I was just in the band for 6 years after that.
Were you doing originals or covers?
Yeah, it was originals, and like it was church music, so we'd play like for camps and stuff, and we would play the church songs, the worship songs, and so but it was originals. We did albums, we toured a little bit. I made $0. It
must have been fun. It sounds like it'd be fun though. I mean, just traveling around playing music for different people.
Yeah,
that sounds
the
great.
scene here, like the larger like Seattle music scene, was kind of fading by this point I was in a band.
Yeah.
But there was like this really great like indie like Christian scene. It was weird.
Yeah.
And then all those people moved to Austin, and so it was like it died pretty quick. But there were tons of shows, so many shows. It was great.
So. You know this band, Sunny Day Real Estate?
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% familiar with them. Growing up, a lot of the guys that I knew that I played in bands with, they always listed them as one of their influences.
Right.
I've heard a little bit of their music, their most popular stuff. I heard they broke up because the singer
Jeremy
Christianity,
Enoch. Yeah.
and so what do you know about do you know the story on that? Like what
I
that
don't
was all
know
about?
the whole story,
Yeah.
but yeah, I know he has a.
I just didn't know if he became a Christian music artist after that.
Not
or-
really.
No.
No,
He just pretty much just kind of retired a little bit. Yeah.
I don't know where he is now. Like
Yeah.
he had one of the coolest voices,
Oh yeah, no.
and yeah, like
Great. He was a great singer.
Yeah, and he had a solo album that was really good,
Uh-huh.
but it wasn't like a Christian album.
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah.
Jeremy Enoch, and it was great. But yeah, and then also, have you heard of Poor Old Lou?
No. I
They
haven't.
were a Seattle like Christian band. I think none of them are Christians anymore.
Oh yeah.
But they like Jeremy Enoch was friends with them, and they all went to like the same church for a little while, and yeah, so. But like Tooth and Nail, the
Yeah. Oh, Tooth
yeah.
and Nail. Yeah.
That's a
absolutely.
Christian album.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
a
A
record
record
label.
label. Yeah.
and they're from here, and so
There
that-
was this band Hopes Fall. They started out as like a Christian hardcore band,
Yeah.
and I mean, whatever you want to say about lyrics, I was always a music guy, anyways. I always like music first, lyrics second, which is funny because I tell jokes now. But like, great band, Hopes Fall, just a great like, very. They added like that kind of that Pink Floyd outer space element to like hardcore music. So they
Okay.
do that really heavy, and then all of a sudden they would just have that spacey kind of
psychedelic kind of sound.
not psychedelic, but just lots of echo, lots of different not tones, but I'm trying to think the word I'm looking
Like
for.
layers?
Yeah, a lot of layers,
Yeah.
a lot of different layers of different things going on, and they're different. They definitely stood out, among a lot of the
Yeah.
other
Hopes
hard
Fall.
Hopes Fall. Yeah, they again, just like a lot of other bands. I think Evanescence started out Christian and then, kind of changed it. It's weird, man, because I didn't grow up religious at all.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, I kind of had a lot of negative views on religion and Christianity. Only till I get older and I start to get to know people like you, and everybody has their own thing. They have their own journey, their own path, and everything that works for them. And ultimately, I think as long as you're not hurting anybody, then what's the problem? I think one thing that I think people need to know about you, and that people should understand, is you are not a Christian comic. You're a comic. And I think that I really want to encourage people to, as I was just talking earlier about branding, and this
Right.
is my brand and this and that. But for example, like Brian Fukuda, I say, dude, the reason I really like you is you're not just an Asian comic. You're a great comic.
Yeah,
and you
he
don't
writes jokes.
and you don't rely on just like the Asian stuff. And like you have a little bit of Christianity stuff in your material, but you're not like, I'm Christian comic, You
Right.
have some real stuff, and you talk about your family and your life, and
Yeah.
I think that people do themselves a disservice when they try to use your faith as your identity.
Yeah. Well, I think that Christian is a terrible adjective,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a joke about that. Like Christian music, Christian movies, Christian politicians.
Yeah.
Just prepare to be disappointed. It's close to the real thing, but
Yeah.
you'll see the cracks.
Yeah.
And so with like comedy in particular, like there's nothing inherently religious about telling jokes.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that, because I'm also a pastor,
Yeah.
and so I use humor on Sundays
Mm-hmm.
as a way to like help communicate the message. But everybody wants to laugh.
Yeah.
And if there's a way to like build a bridge between people, humor is the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
And so like my jokes, like I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm not trying to like, I'm not going to be edgy. My hope is that anybody could come to where I'm doing jokes or trying to do jokes,
Yeah.
and be like, that was a pleasant experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't want to push anybody away or upset anyone.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like I'm not trying to like win people to Jesus
Yeah.
at an open mic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of the last place you got to try to.
Yeah,
win
but I mean,
anybody
I've
over.
had like really cool conversations with folks after
Uh-huh.
shows when I talk about being a pastor, and they're like, "Are you for real? Like, you're really a pastor?" I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
why would I lie
Yeah.
about that? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't win me points in Seattle to be like, "Hey, I'm religious." So,
Well, I think the older I get, I think the more curious I'm going to get about what comes next. You know, it's even now. You know, I've had we've had people close to us pass away recently.
yeah,
My wife has had like a very serious life threatening situation. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, and it really changes your thought about what's important.
right.
And you starts to the little things don't bother you as much. Like, I work with this person who just is always just things about work are really annoying her, and she's just like kind of cursing and kind of saying things under her breath and kind of talking crap about other employees, and like that. I just cannot imagine. I mean, I guess I've been there, but I just can't imagine letting those things bother me at this point in my life because of going through serious things,
Yeah,
As we get older, you're a little older than me, our parents are getting older, and grandparents, some of them are even gone now. And yeah, it's, it just makes you think, it makes you think like, kind of, I don't know. I think a lot of people they kind of ignore it. They don't want to think about, the reason and why we're here because it's too intense. It's too hard to grasp the concept.
yeah. Well, personally, one of the challenges with faith
Mm-hmm.
is if you're going to believe that there is an authority over you,
Mm-hmm.
then you have to be accountable to that.
Yeah.
And I grew up in church, and so like I fully believe that Jesus is who he says he is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to talk to people about it anytime. But because I believe Jesus is who he says he is, then it's like, oh, I should do what he says.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the challenge is we don't really want people to tell us what to do. And, we don't this, you're going to let a 2,000-year-old book dictate your life is something that people have said to me. And it's like, it's better than nothing. It's better than thinking that I'm all alone and that nothing matters. And it just gives me hope. Like, even like we talk about the world being crazy.
Yeah.
Like I look at America and I remember like, oh man, America's temporary.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to put my hope in the Constitution.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when churches start doing that,
Mm-hmm.
like churches become overly political or too tied to any party, it's like that's a sign of danger.
Yeah.
Like you're putting your hope in the wrong thing. Like we have a faith in that will last beyond the American empire.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if this is the normal tone that you get into in your podcast.
No,
but
man, this is the thing is, I mean, the basis of everything is comedy, comedians, but why do we do what we do? What is it that helps us create the things that we want to say? This is where the spiritual thing comes into play, because for me, I really believe it's not me. I believe something else is coming. What it is, and it's the dumbest thing, because I make these dumb jokes, these goofy, just dumb jokes, but I will be driving in my car and something will just come to me, and then I have to record it or I'm going to lose it. Yeah. And I won't remember it again if I don't write it down, record it, whatever. And I really think whatever it is, I don't know what it is, but it's just, I was talking to Charlie earlier, like there is definitely something more to us than just cells and
cells and meat.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you met your wife for the first time, you felt some sort of an energy, and she felt that energy. Or if you're around a person that you know is a good person, you feel the good vibes. Or somebody makes you uncomfortable, and then you find out, oh, that guy, he just killed somebody. Like, or that guy, he served prison, whatever, something like that. Like, you feel energies of people. Sometimes, especially like when you're spend a lot of time around somebody like your kids or your spouse, they think they can say out loud what you're thinking.
Yeah.
So, and like songs, like when I used to write songs, I would just be jamming the guitar, and then all of a sudden something would come and something would start like, oh, this is really cool. I think there is definitely something. I don't know what it is. It could be. Well, it could be divine, and it could just be, some sort of an energy out there that we're all connected to somehow.
Well, for me, like the way I would talk about that is like, I spent a lot of time talking about Genesis, because if you don't know the origin story, you're not going to get the rest of the story. Yeah. Right. So, is it all right if we get a little biblical?
Yeah. Well,
I'm not going to get too biblical.
No, this is as far as I know, the coolest part of the Bible
is Genesis.
It's because it has all the big themes, the big things.
So God, like in Genesis, it says God made humanity in His image, and so because God is a creator, as revealed to us in the Bible, we are like Him.
Interesting.
And so we have a creative impulse, and we're the only creatures that God made in His image. Like animals like build and do things kind of more on instinct. Yeah. Right. But like as you read the Bible, like, oh, the humanity is different. We make things, and sometimes we make good things. Sometimes we make bad things, destructive things. Mm-hmm. But all of that making is because we are made like Him. And so like when you have those moments of like inspiration or like an idea pops into your head, that's kind of like a spark of the divine in you that is saying like, oh, here's an idea. And what you do with that idea then is part of your journey. Like, I've had a lot of ideas that are like, that's a bad idea. Yeah. But at the same time, like knowing like as a creative person, it's not just me trying to like work to be more creative all by myself, but it's like, no, this is actually one of the ways that I can honor the gift of creation in me that God has given is to create, and to not keep those things to myself, but to share the creative things. So, yeah.
Well, I think because of your line of work, I feel like I can consider you kind of a professional in your field.
Yeah.
Let me ask. I want to ask you a few questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Why do you think religion outside of America is so volatile, and why there is so much why is there so much fighting over religion? Because America, do you think that we are not as we're not as devout to our religions, or is it has religion grown with our society, with American society, whereas over in Middle East and Asia, Eastern Europe, it's still kind of old school, traditional.
Well, yeah, one of the cool things about my job is I do get to travel to different countries, and America is very religious.
So let me ask you, how many countries have you been to?
I have been to...
Just to name a few, that's all.
So I've been to Honduras, Mexico, Cuba.
All the hot countries, folks.
The real hot stuff. So
and he gets sunburned easily, I could tell.
Yeah. And then Egypt and Turkey.
Oh, wow. Nice.
And yeah, I think that's... Yeah. So when I was in Egypt, it was a couple years after the Arab Spring. Yeah. Right? And so Egypt is a country that was ruled by a dictator, and the students, the young people, rebelled against the dictator. And this is all happening, and they drove them out, and now a new dictator is there. Yeah. But that Arab Spring impulse had there was a bit of a religious impulse behind it as well.
Yeah.
But when I was in Egypt, I was told, like, by the news and by culture, like, the call to prayer happens because it's a Muslim majority country.
Yeah.
And, there's 5 times a day that the call to prayer happens. And what was communicated to me just through random stuff is, like, call to prayer happens, the world stops.
Mm-hmm.
In Cairo, nothing stopped.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
they're as culturally religious as America, right? Like, America has a lot of Christian, like, holidays
Yeah.
and ideas that are, from the church. Like, the reason that Christmas break happens is because of Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Like that break, we call it winter break now.
Yeah.
But Christmas is what got it started.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Christmas
Yeah.
and the New Year.
Uh-huh.
And so that break is in our year, but most of America is not really paying attention to, like, what that holiday really is, why that break exists, all that kind of stuff, right? The same kind of thing in Egypt. And Turkey, when I was in Turkey, call to prayer happened, nothing stopped. And so we have this, like, there's more going on in the world than just, like, people are fighting over religion.
Yeah.
But religion tends to be, I think, the divider.
Yeah.
Or the not necessarily divider, the marker, right? And so, in particular, and I'm not an expert on Middle East studies, but like, when you look at Israel,
foreign policy,
Israel and Palestine and, like, Islam and Judaism and Christianity all have claim to significant events happened in that tiny
area.
little Rhode Island piece of land. Yeah. Right?
Uh-huh.
And so the conflict there is not just about the religion as much as the property. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, this is our land. Mm-hmm. Like, it's important to us to have this land. And so there's all this conflict over land that, is more than just, because the people who are fighting aren't necessarily as devout as we might think they are. Yeah. They're just like, no, it's ours. And not necessarily like, I need to do this for Jesus, or I need to do this for Muhammad. Like,
yeah, it's more just, this is what we want.
Yeah. And and so, like, the places where, like, where Christianity is different, I think, is like, Jesus never told us to make any monuments to him. And we did. Yeah. But we don't have to. Yeah. Right? Like, there's no like, tomb of Jesus, because he only borrowed that tomb and then he left. Yeah. Right? And so, like, we don't have the same tie, I think, to physical spaces because we don't need to. But like, especially in my tradition, like, we're very spiritual tradition, and so, the Holy Spirit lives in us. Like, we are the temple, so we don't need a temple. Yeah. Right. But, like, for the Temple Mount, where, like, Judaism wants to have a temple there, and Islam claims that land for themselves, as they have a mosque there. That's going to be a conflict for a long time. Yeah. But then you look at, like, in the church, in our history, the conflict was over, like, belief. Yeah. Right? Like, so Martin Luther, the Reformation. Yeah. He nailed 95 points to the door at the Wittenberg Chapel, pointing out all the things that the Catholic Church he disagreed with, and he didn't intend to leave Catholicism, but they kicked him out. Yeah. And they started, like, these religious wars between Protestants and Catholics over belief. Yeah. Yeah, I know that Ireland is huge volatile area for that.
But
then even in the Protestant tradition, they started fighting each other. Yeah. It's like over belief, not over land, over belief. And so I think part of the tension is, like, I'm right, you're wrong, you should die. Yeah. Right? It's kind of how people look at it. Like, you're a heretic. And I just am not comfortable calling anybody a heretic. Yeah. Like, it's not my job. So, anyway. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. It's just, as I get older, they're whether you want to just think about the faith aspect of it, the community aspect of it is great. I mean, I come from a place where, I remember being 6 or 7 years old, seeing a kid pull out a kitchen knife in the bathroom at school. So gangs, a lot of gangs in Sacramento area, at least in the 90s. I mean, maybe it's a little bit different now. And kids are, I mean, I went to a continuation high school when I was 16, 17.
I don't know what that is.
What that is it's a school where either they've been expelled from the regular high school or they are fallen behind.
Okay.
And like kids could be, 18, 19 years old, still catching up with their high school.
Yeah.
So the bad kids high school is what they would call it. For me, I kind of skipped some school a little bit and fell behind and had to go to this other school. But again, they also had girls that had kids that were like 15, 16, and they would have a daycare on campus and stuff like that. I don't know where I was going with that. But no, what I was saying is the community aspect of it, and it's just like it's nice. What I've seen with other churches in the past is they do things for the community whether you're part of it or not. They I think that any sort of positive, I think any sort of positive activity, it can't be bad. It's like it's a place for especially in this time, people are so lonely.
Yeah.
People are just looking for just someone to be around. We're at a time now where there are still tons of big families, but there are also small families. Like I have a daughter, and she's never gonna have any siblings. And I think that's becoming more and more common just because kids are more and more harder to pay for and do all the things for. But yeah, no, I mean, like, I think that's an aspect of it, the community that people just seem to not really think about. Like, I just know so many people that didn't have anything, and so they didn't have any positive influence in their life, and so doing drugs, doing crime, falling into bad traps, bad credit, not getting out of their situation.
Right.
And so
what
what a community like that can offer is it's not just a faith thing. You can offer a lot more than that. You can offer just someone to be there, talk to, someone you can have kids for your kids to play with. I mean, there's just there's a lot of great things about it that as a young kid you just don't really think about. You just think, oh, they're trying to put this belief on me. Screw that, And it's not. There's a lot of layers to it as you get older, especially become a dad and stuff like that as well.
Right.
So
yeah, well, we for our church we do it's called Creekside Church, by the way, in Lynnwood. 10 o'clock
yeah,
Sunday.
I didn't want to advertise it unless you wanted to.
Yeah, no, it's fine. They know I do comedy, so so we do these things called neighborhood tables. Yeah. Where before COVID, we rented space in community centers and provided meals and prayed for people, just built community and talked. We had a short Jesus talk in the whole thing, but the real deal was just we want to meet a physical need. Yeah. And so we had homeless people, we had seniors, we had all kinds of people coming to these. We had 2 locations, and then COVID came and we couldn't rent space anymore. And so everything had to go outside. Yeah. And so we moved into the parking lot in one location, and then we just moved into our church parking lot on a different night. So Tuesday and Wednesday at 5 o'clock, we have people, one in Mount Lake Terrace and one in Lynnwood, and we're just serving meals, and they're to-go meals. And COVID, diminished, and we were thinking, should we go back inside and rent space? And it's well, we're just here in the parking lot. And I am actually having more times to connect and pray with people in the parking lot than I am on a Sunday morning. Yeah, man. Because people come and they just are happy to talk to somebody. Yeah. But the hardest thing is getting people out of the lack of engagement that COVID brought along. Oh yeah. It's so easy to entertain ourselves that we think we don't need to go anywhere. Right. And your podcast is going to be on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube is awesome.
Yeah.
And I have a YouTube channel. I spend a lot of time learning a lot of stuff on YouTube. I love it. But at the same time, like, if I'm not careful, like, I could substitute that for actual like community.
Yeah.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Like, you've got people who probably watch your podcast every week, and they're like, Steven's my friend, and they've never met you. You know, like
Maybe. I don't know. It's when I see 60 or 70 views, I'm like, who the hell is? I mean, there must be somebody watching this 10 times, because I can't believe. I mean, I could think of maybe 20 people that would watch it. So maybe people are just clicking on it, but who knows? I mean,
but it creates a community of something, but it's not like it's not as real. And so that's one of the reasons why I got back into doing comedy, was to be with people. Yeah. Because it's getting people out of their houses, out of their apartments, and being with other people is so important.
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. I mean, I after the band and stuff like that, and I met my wife, it was kind of just us. You know, it was hard to be social with other people. I lived in a different city. And we really lived this really close, insular life. Mm-hmm. And not to say that I've ever been the social butterfly, but, you know, and when you're in a band, you tend to have more friends than not. If you're not in a band, because people come out to see you, and people, you know. And again, this could be a deeper psychological thing, like having a talent that I can show to people makes me feel like I'm worth something to people. But we could talk about that another time. Where's it going?
We're talking about community.
Yeah. Well, before comedy and before COVID, I just knew that I was feeling like something was missing. You know, I was doing some. Like, I don't know if I wanted to do another band. I was recording some songs, not really putting them out, making videos, making vlogs, drawing, making T-shirts, just all sorts of different projects, like something to just kind of like fulfill that need. And during COVID, that's when I feel like things were really bad, because before I didn't know what to do, and then during that, even if I wanted to do something, I couldn't, because things were just not available. We were talking about YouTube earlier. I mean, YouTube might be because I probably might not be doing comedy if not for YouTube, because I watched a lot of YouTube during that time, and I always liked comedy. I mean, when did you start? I don't know if we talked about this a little bit on the last episode, but like, were you a comedy fan when you were younger, like a kid?
Absolutely. Yeah. I loved making people laugh. Mm-hmm. And so, like, in church, we had a youth group, and we did a drama team, and just a lot of funny sketches. That was kind of where comedy started for me, was doing sketches. And then watching, like, Jeff Foxworthy and Bill Engvall and Bill Cosby, like, all those just classic acts. You know, like, that was one of those things and they all looked like it was so much fun. Mm-hmm. And so, like, SNL was something I
loved SNL. Like, a lot of people grew up with, like, the original cast and the Eddie Murphy years. I think I was more the 90s, kind of the
like Will Ferrell.
The early 90s with Adam Sandler, David Spade, Farley, and then the late 90s with Ferrell, Chris Kattan, Jimmy Fallon, all those guys. You know? Yeah.
So, like, all of that, I was like, which is always something that I loved. Yeah. And I didn't get into doing comedy until my friend Michael was going to go do an open mic at Giggles, which is now Laughs.
Yeah, we've talked about Giggles on this podcast a few times. So. Yeah,
Giggles. So back then, like, Terry, who owned it, like, didn't care. Yeah. Like, Sunday night open mic, you just like, can I go up? Like, yeah. How long? I don't care.
What year are we talking? What year?
This was 2009, 2010. Okay. Is when I started. Because I was in my master's program, and I was getting a master of theology and culture, and so I had to write a thesis, and so I went to do this open mic with my friend Mike, who was really nervous, and I was like, I'll go. I'll try.
Yeah.
And so I wrote a set, and it went way better than I thought it would go. And so I was like, oh, I should do this again. And so I started getting into it. But that night, there was somebody who went up after me who, like, was being, like, very authentic and very real. Something, like, clicked for me in, like, what comedy can do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to write a thesis, and so I went to my advisor. I was like, hey, can I talk about humor as, like, truth-telling in my thesis for my master's program? He said, absolutely. And so I started doing open mics and doing comedy and stuff just to learn about what is comedy.
Yeah.
And then doing a whole bunch of research. And so a few years, I was pretty regular. And then my job changed.
Yeah.
So I was the, like, associate pastor, and then I became the lead pastor. And my life got crazy busy.
Yeah.
And I just dropped off. My kids needed more from me.
Yeah, absolutely.
The church needed more from me. But I still loved comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to I was getting ready to, like, go to get my doctorate. And so I emailed the person who runs the program that I ended up going to, and I was like, hey, I want to talk about comedy and community building. Does that work with your program? And he said, absolutely. What are you waiting for? And so I went back to school and studied more comedy, talked about community building, and how, like, in particular, looking at how the church can use comedy to, like, break down walls and help people, like feel seen and heard. And so it was just last year.
Yeah.
I
started
was
coming back.
Yeah, because we went to a conference, and the speaker was like, you should be with people who don't go to church. Like pastors.
Yeah.
You should be with people who don't go to church. Like, I should. Because COVID, like, I used to work at coffee shops and all kinds of stuff, and then COVID shut everything down. I built an office at home. Like, I had no reason to leave.
Yeah.
I was like, this is not good for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I talked to my wife. I was like, hey, what do you think about me doing comedy again? And she's like, yeah, go for it. Mm-hmm. So I signed up for Taylor's class, because the last time Taylor Clark, who's great.
Shout out.
Rekindle School on the internet. Look it up.
Yeah.
Taylor, though, like, when I stopped before, I was all by myself. Nobody cared.
Yeah.
And, like, I would go to shows and, like, bomb, and I had no one to talk to. It was so demoralizing. Oh, man. And so I was like, I'm not going to do that again. So I did the class to get to know people. Mm-hmm. And so, like, Roseanne, Comedy LaForce, Roseanne.
Roseanne LaForce. Well, she'll be here at the same day Taylor will be here featuring as well. So
So Ryan Padilla.
Oh, nice. Yeah. He
will
feature
class.
here.
Yeah, Ryan's great. But so now, like, I go to open mics and I see people I know from the class. And then, like, meeting Nick at Peace of Mind Brewing.
Yeah. Nick Cody,
who should be here tonight. He's going to see Deadpool.
Yeah, he told me that. Yeah, he's like, can he give me a ride home? I was like, sure, man. Oh, he left his Coheed and Cambria hat in my car, too.
So, so, like, now I, like, know people.
Yeah.
And it's much more fun because I have a little community of, like, so Scott and you, like, we all met at the Peace of Mind.
Yeah.
Which is, like, this crazy little open mic of old guys singing the same songs to each other. Yeah. And they, every once in a while, let comedians, like, tell some jokes.
Both shows that I did there were great.
Yeah, the shows are great that Nick produces. The open mics are sometimes like,
I've only done the open mic once or twice. There's a lot of competition on Wednesdays for comedy, and I know this because my previous job, I always had what was called emergency calls on Wednesday nights, and so I could. If there was a problem with the garage, I had to go out and be Mr. Fix-It. So I never could do comedy on Wednesday. And there's Flight Path, which is in Burien. You have Tacoma Comedy Club downtown. You have
Shanghai just opened.
Shanghai has a Wednesday mic now. Club Comedy, sign up the night before. Laughs Comedy Club has a thing. So
on Wednesday?
Not an open mic. It's a show. They don't have mics.
All right.
So it's there's a lot of stuff going on Wednesday, and then Peace of Mind as well.
Yeah.
And then there's another mic in West Seattle, which is like a music mic that some people I know have gone and done comedy at, called the Skylark Cafe. So there's just a lot to do on Wednesdays. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is, but that hump day,
Maybe that's it.
hump day has become comedy day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but it's it's been fun to like get out and be with people again.
yeah.
So
How how's the comedy been going, since you've been back? And
well, not to brag, but last year I made $97.
hey,
So yeah, I mean,
baller.
I'm doing pretty great. It's been good. I have I feel like I'm writing better than I was before. I feel like just good connections with people. There's some folks who I had done comedy with in the past who have reached out and be like, hey man, you want to be on a show? You want to do a thing? And it's like,
nice.
Sure. And those are mostly like church focused shows, which like I can do my act anywhere.
Yeah.
Cause I don't have any offensive material.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that'd be cool to like do that without like, I don't want to be a Christian comedian like you said, but like, church is like,
what you want to do is just, I think, be authentic to yourself. You know, it's you don't want to go up there and just start talking about drugs and women and stuff like that, and people are like, oh, I don't believe you.
I don't believe you at all.
And something's bothering you, you're not going to go up there and pretend that it's not bothering you. So
right.
Yeah, man, it's been really, comedy's been awesome. Comedy is.
How long have you been?
I put a post the other day on just posting a picture, and it's just like, it's really just been such a great thing for my life. It's. I was just thinking, because I my job, it's not a great job, but it is a job to where it allows me to have the freedom to balance my family and comedy, which is the most important thing, because ultimately I don't know if I will ever have a job other than performing or entertaining that will truly satisfy me. I mean, because I've always been an entertainer. I mean, it's playing in a band. I can even remember going back to like kindergarten and doing the school plays, and we did like I think it was in the kindergarten, first grade, we did like a Three Little Pigs play. And I was one of the big bad wolves. I think we had like 5 wolves in the class. Yeah. And there were a bunch of pigs.
There's 28 kids in class, so we're going to need some more wolves.
Yeah. So that's always been me, performing. But yeah, no, with the combination of a job that doesn't interfere with that stuff, and being able to go out more, and people like kind of just showing me, I am the kind of person, and I know this, and I'm trying to work on this, is I almost need praise when I do a good job. I mean, I've dealt with this in jobs that I've had. I've done my personal relationships. I like to feel appreciated, or like be told like, hey, you're really good at that. Like, I don't know what it is. It just inflates my ego and it makes me feel good. So
I think that's just being a person.
Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know anybody who's like, no, don't ever say I did a good job.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So like, with this thing, it's circling back around. Like I said, it's with all the chaos and all the stuff with drama, friendships, people dying, stuff like that. It feels like it's finally like things are getting better.
Yeah.
Like comedy's going good. I'm making relationships with these people, like cool people.
Yeah.
I also, I'm genuine with I want to help people, and I want people to succeed, and because this show is called Comedy Simp because I'm a comedy fan, and I don't know if a lot of people who do comedy here are actually fans of comedy. Maybe they're fans of their own comedy, or maybe they're fans of like a couple people here or there. But like me, I'm like when I was in a band, I couldn't narrow down my favorite band or my favorite genre. Right. I loved all sorts of different stuff, and that's with comedy. It's the same thing. I like, you do stuff that's kind of more closer to real life, like stuff that I can identify with. And then you have people like Robbie Schrader who just do off the wall crazy jokes. And then you have these guys that just do some really, really edgy material that most of the time is not good. And then every once in a while they'll do one that just gets you, and you're like, wow, that was good.
Yeah.
And then and then it's nice. It's really cool to see these people that are probably going to be doing this professionally one day.
Right.
There are some people now that we've met, that we've been at open mics with, that they're busy. They're doing shows, 10, 20 shows a month.
Right.
And eventually they're going to be one of the big names out there. And it's cool to see that. It's cool to see that happening in real time and in real life. You know? The other thing about comedy that I've talked to my wife about is the difference between comedy and music. When you do it, is the big names and the big players are accessible. Like they're like, when I was in a band, I was never gonna meet the guys from Pearl Jam or the Red Hot Chili Peppers or whatever like that. But as a comedian, like, a lot of Adam Ray came to Comedy Bar. All these people met Adam Ray.
The first open mic
Matt
I did,
Rife was at Nate Jackson's a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So.
First open mic I did when I came back, it was at Comedy Bar. And it was like Drew Lynch dropped in.
Yeah.
Someone else. It was like a big name. I was like,
yeah.
oh, whoa, like you're here. And so, because we all got to work out.
Yeah.
We all got to like try the things, and the open mics are where you do it. And so, yeah.
And I haven't met a lot of big comedians, but the comedians that I have met that are at a higher level than me, they have treated me with lots of respect, like a peer, which I don't always feel like that when I'm in a band.
Right.
Sometimes a lot of people just look at, like, a lot of the local heroes will look at your band as like the next, like, oh, here's a competition. Here's just another group of kids that are trying to take away from me. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It does. I get it. I get it. How do you end this?
Are we still going?
I don't know.
Oh, well, we haven't made an hour yet. I don't even
really?
know.
I don't even know how long it's
We're
been.
51 minutes.
Okay.
So let's do a couple. Let's ask. Let's do some questions though.
Okay.
So when did you come back into comedy? About what time period?
A year ago.
So about a year this time.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I was probably about 7-8 months that I was doing it. I don't think I met you until closer to the end of the year.
Yeah.
And who are some of the people? I mean, you talked about Nick Cody and stuff like that. Do you have other people that you kind of made friends with here in the scene that you see around, that you like to do mics with, stuff like that? Who makes you laugh?
Robbie Schrader makes me laugh so
Robbie,
hard.
absolutely.
I think Robbie is he's a genius. And I don't know what's happening. So I love Robbie. I love Femi. Femi is he's got a joke about Kanye that he says is like an old joke. He doesn't do it very much anymore, but it makes me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
I'll
tell you this about Femi was going to feature here, and then I messaged him a couple days before. I said, "You still coming?" And he said no. And I don't know. I mean, there was some drama with some other comic, and just for the record, we love Femi. Everybody loves Femi. I know that there's some clubs that he doesn't perform at, but he's always welcome here anytime. And hopefully, I'd love to have him on the podcast. But when I started, I mean, making him laugh was one of my first accomplishments.
Yeah.
I made him laugh, and that was a really cool thing for me as a new comic, because I looked up to him, and I still look up to him.
Yeah.
So even though he weighs about 140 pounds.
Yeah, but he's super funny.
Yeah.
I've had really great conversations with him too, like before and after shows.
And he really cares about the art.
The craft of it.
Not just. I mean, he's not just self-involved. He really wants a good show, and he wants a good scene. Yeah. And I know he's not 100% happy with the scene right now. And
yeah, Yeah.
It's hard to make everybody happy. Who else? Let's say name some other comics, huh?
So like Roseanne.
Roseanne LaForce.
Yeah. So I see her around. There's a guy named Brett Hollis who
Brett
doesn't
Hollis.
do a lot of.
I
open
don't
mics
know
and stuff.
Brett Hollis.
He does a lot of. He does a lot of churches, but so I'm reconnecting with him. The weekend that I stopped doing comedy was the best weekend. I did a show for Young Life. And then I did a show at a church, and then I did a show with Brett and a guy named Jerry Minor, and I got paid for all of those.
Nice.
And then I quit. I was like, I'm going out on top.
It happens.
Jerry was one of those guys who does a lot of church stuff too, but he was always like looking out for opportunities for me in the before times, and so trying to like reconnect with him as well. So, yeah.
Have there been any? What do you think about some of the comedians that don't go over so well?
Like when they
what's your
when they like offend?
What's your opinion on comedy being offensive? Because I mean, I'm sure you have a line that you're willing to go, but as a spectator,
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think one of the things to note is that you choose to take offense. Like nobody can make you offended.
Yeah.
That's a choice you make. And so if there's like a joke that's like, I wouldn't say that. I don't have to be offended by it. I don't have to carry it around.
Yeah.
And I know that there are communities that have been marginalized and hurt by different things. And I'm going to do my best to not like hurt anybody.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I'm not going to, if somebody makes fun of the church, like I'm not going to be mad about it.
Yeah.
Like,
well, it's good to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all about the intention. If you're not trying to hurt people and you're just trying to, I've been thinking a lot about roasts and roasting. I want to be part of a roast battle, but I don't want to do it to be offensive and mean. I want to be like Jordan when he does the roast here. It's fun. It's just like it's kind of lighthearted.
Yeah.
And that's the way I would like to do it. But yeah, man, that's cool.
I've
really
never done a roast because I'm afraid that I would hurt somebody's feelings. So, like it makes me super uncomfortable. Be like, I don't want to make fun of you. Like,
all right. So I'm gonna throw an idea out. You tell me if this is offensive.
Okay.
What if we did during Christmas we do a roast of famous biblical figures?
I mean, they're all dead. They won't know.
Yeah.
So,
which figure do you think I could be?
like you would do a roast as
Yeah,
this figure?
I want to be like we'd be different. Like we need to have Noah, David and Goliath.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, Nick is obviously Goliath.
Right.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you and Nick did a David and Goliath.
Oh, there we
duo,
go. Yes,
that could be great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cain and Abel. We could do that.
Yeah. That's a.
Who else? We need some ladies. Who's a lady from the?
Well, that's where it gets hard.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but it's a pretty male-centric book.
Yeah.
You could do Eve.
Eve. Yes.
Be a little risque. Maybe the Hotties and Bodies show for that one.
Yes.
And then you could do Mary.
Mary. There you go. Yeah.
I mean, there's
The
women.
apostles.
You could do Dorcas.
Now, who in the comedy scene is Judas?
I'm not ready to answer
Yes,
that.
we're not ready to answer that one, but if you want to be Judas in my Christmas show, just DM me. Hey, so you got anything coming up? Anything fun? Any cool events?
I don't have
anything
any
like that.
Anything after tonight. I don't have any like features scheduled or anything. I'm just
And you got
along for the ride.
any ideas? Anything you're working towards in comedy? You're like trying to build like a certain length of a set, or are you trying to get up on a certain stage somewhere?
I'd like to get to a half hour. I think I have a pretty good 15 minutes I could do, and so my next step is the half hour, trying to do that. But where do you find time to do a half hour?
Yeah, I
as,
know.
like an open micer, like
Exactly.
that's really hard. So, yeah. So
you gotta get on a lot of 10-minute shows and start working those 10 minutes and then 15 and then.
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I have no like major goal.
Yeah.
Like I'm not trying to be a professional comedian. So just
well,
for fun.
I mean, dude, anytime you want to be on this show, anytime. I love talking to you. I got a lot of stuff that I want to do with comedy. It's just see how it all plans and how it all works out.
Right.
I mean, I like promoting other comics. I know I run the Sam's Open Mic Instagram, so like sometimes if somebody who has performed here, like Roseanne or Dino Dad or somebody along those lines, if I see them, they post a new reel, I try to share it.
Right.
In my personal Instagram, I share my friends' stuff if it's really funny, and we're all. My philosophy is nobody in comedy is successful by themselves.
Right.
Because you need it. It's not even just you in the audience. There's a crew. There's club owners. There's other comics. There's producers. There's wait staff. There's bartenders. There's so much. Sound guys.
Yeah.
There's so much that goes into comedy that I never really considered until now, and it's a community. It really is a community.
Yeah.
And
it takes all that to make a show happen.
But hey, man, glad that you're part of it.
Yeah, thank you. This was super fun.
Yeah, and if they want to, like Creekside Church, right?
Yeah,
and Lynnwood.
thecreeksidechurch.org is our church.
And then Jason.Deuman on Instagram.
On Instagram and Facebook and
you got comedy. You got
YouTube.
some comedy videos and stuff on there.
Yeah.
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 So you see some comedy clips of Jason. You're gonna be posting any shows you got coming
I'll
up.
post all that onto Instagram. And yeah.
And if you're in crisis, send him a DM.
Yeah.
He's happy to listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
all right, thank you, Steven.
Let's do this. Thanks. Again, 1 hour. If you're in crisis,
Comedy Simp, the podcast you can't resist. Stephen Michael James, the host you won't wanna miss. From Seattle to the world, his humor will persist. Join the fun, get ready to enlist. Spitting fire on